Welcome back to Plot Twist Hub. Today I'm breaking down a 2009 comedy fantasy mystery film called Symbol. Major spoilers ahead. Watch at your own risk. A Japanese man, dressed in bright, colorful pajamas, wakes up in a completely white room with no doors, no windows, and what seems like no ceiling at all. As he walks toward one of the walls to inspect it, he notices something strange sticking out. A little bump, shaped suspiciously like a certain male part. Curious, he taps it a couple times, then presses the tip. Instantly, hundreds of tiny baby angels pop out of the walls and floor, giggling before disappearing just as quickly as they appeared. But they leave something behind. Now dozens of those weird-looking buttons are poking out from every surface. This begins what he later calls the learning phase. He sniffs the finger he used to touch the strange button, gets freaked out, screams for help, cries a little, and begs anyone, to get him out. No response. So he starts pressing the buttons to see what happens. Each one drops a random object into the room, anything from a toothbrush to a giant vase. Pressing the same button twice gives him the same item, and after experimenting with one button, he ends up with a mountain of chopsticks. His fun doesn't last long. The next button releases a tiny cart that slams into his legs. Another transforms into a giant butt that literally farts in his face. Hours pass, and now the room is full of random junk. When he throws a ball at the wall, it accidentally hits a button that drops sushi. He gets excited. He's starving, but realizes there's no soy sauce. He begs whoever trapped him for some, gets no answer, then spams the sushi button out of frustration. Still, no sauce. He gives up and eats the sushi anyway. Right after he finishes the last piece and asks for more, a soy sauce bottle finally appears. Irritated, he shoves the bottle aside and tries a different button. This one gives him a pair of old-school 3D glasses. When he puts them on, he spots a baby angel pointing at another button, so he presses it, thinking he's solved something. Instead, a countdown starts, and a massive butt descends from above to fart directly on him again. Some hours later, he's read 5 volumes of manga he found entertaining, and when he presses a button, hoping for volume 6, it spits out volume 7. Annoyed, he tries other buttons. They give him 8 and 9, but still not 6. The final button he tests reveals something huge. Part of the wall slides open, exposing a hidden door. He celebrates, but in his excitement, he forgets which button opened it. When he guesses randomly, one button makes an African tribesman sprint through the room. Another dumps water on his head. Finally, he finds the correct button again and runs for the exit, only for the door to slam in his face. The second attempt ends the same way. That's when he realizes the door stays open only while the button tip is pressed down. So he tries different methods. First, he pushes it with his foot like a runner. Then, he attempts hitting it with a fly swatter from a distance. He tries a jump rope, a fan, even riding the tiny cart. But nothing works. He decides he needs something heavy to hold the button down. He places the big vase on top, but the button pops back up. So he concludes he needs to fill the vase with something to make it heavier. He tries the water button, but no matter how he positions the vase, the water only pours on him. Then he fills the vase with sushi, but it becomes too heavy to lift, and the neck is too narrow to reach inside. So he uses chopsticks to remove pieces one by one. Eventually, he lifts it barely and carries it back to the buttons. But once again, he forgets which button controls the door. When he tries one at random, the tribesman bursts out again, bumps into the vase, and cracks it in half. He finally snaps, yelling non-stop, then frantically presses buttons until he finds the right one and desperately tries covering the button with sushi. That fails too. The little member pokes right back up through the rice. He tapes it down, doesn't work, adds a steel plate. Still no luck. After taking some painkillers for the repeated hits from the door and napping for a bit, he wakes up wanting to brush his teeth. He presses a button for water, but it's the wrong one. Instead, a rope drops from the ceiling. This gives him a new idea. open the door, grab the rope, and swing across the room fast enough to beat the countdown. But when he gets to the door behind the fake wall, it's locked. He swings back just before the door closes, but it still smacks him again. Frustrated, he kicks the wall, accidentally hitting another button. This time, a key appears, floating in the center of the room. But just like the door, the key vanishes again, which means he now has to figure out how to keep both the key inside the room and the door held open at the same time. But first, he has to relocate the correct button because in all the chaos, he completely lost track of it. By estimating where his foot must have landed when he kicked the wall earlier, he picks a button. A dog pops out and barks at him. He tries another one. Same dog, same barking. Thankfully, his third attempt hits the right button. Keeping his eyes locked on the button and pointing at it so he won't forget again, he slowly steps backward, grabs a piece of sushi, and uses it to mark the correct spot. But when he presses it again, the dog appears anyway. The second time around, he finds the right button faster and continues his plan. He triggers the rope drop and begins swinging on it to reach the other buttons. But he still isn't close enough. When he falls to the floor, he spots a plunger he got from one of the earlier buttons, and that sparks a new idea. He can use the plunger to push off the wall and launch himself farther. After messing up once, the plan finally works. Using a combo of rope swinging and plunger boosting, he manages to press the button with the key, grab the key, hit the door button, and reach the doorway before it slams shut. He quickly jams the key into the lock and turns it. But there's a nasty surprise waiting for him. A second lock. This one up top requires a 3-digit code. He sprints back out, gets smacked by the door again, and in frustration, throws the plunger at the opposite wall, triggering the button that summons the African tribesman again. As the man watches him run by, he notices 3 numbers painted across his forehead. Those must be the code. Since the exit only stays open for a very short time, he has to repeat the whole rope-swinging, button-pressing sequence 3 separate times, 1 for each number. On the 3rd round, he stays put and starts pulling the door open. It's jammed and takes all his strength, but when he finally forces it partway open, the wall behind him closes completely, trapping him with barely any space to finish opening it. Heartbroken, he collapses to the floor and starts crying. He remembers all the silly moments he had with the random objects earlier. He'd been locked in back then too, but at least he had space to move and things to keep him busy. Now he realizes he didn't appreciate it while he had it. Suddenly, a faint breeze brushes across his face. He touches the wall to his left and feels a crack, another fake panel. He wastes no time forcing it open and sprints through it, entering a mysterious hallway floating in pure darkness. It feels like he's running for ages. When he finally reaches another room, his hair is noticeably longer, and the colors of his pajamas have faded. This new room is also empty, and the door seals shut the moment he steps inside. Instead of baby angels, adult angels rise from the walls this time, and like before, they vanish, leaving behind their member buttons. This is the phase called practice. Meanwhile, in a small Mexican town, a boy named Antonio and his family are worried. His father, a wrestler known as Escargot Man, is unusually quiet today. His wife thinks it's because his upcoming opponent is much younger, but the grandfather insists that experience outweighs youth. Escargot Man's daughter, Sister Karen, picks him up in her truck and drives him to the arena so he can get ready early, changing into his costume and saying a prayer to the Virgin. At school, Antonio gets bullied for supporting his dad. The other kids tease him, calling Escargot Man a washed-up loser. As the match time nears, Sister Karen picks up Antonio and their grandfather and drops them off at the venue. She doesn't stay, but Antonio and his grandfather manage to find seats just as the show begins. The first team to enter the ring is Northern Tough Ones, made up of Super Demon and Tequila Joe. Then Escargot Man and his partner, Silver Eagle, enter as the tag team Kiss Me A Lot. Silver Eagle starts the fight strong, but is quickly overwhelmed when both opponents gang up on him instead of fighting fair. They taunt Escargot Man, daring him to jump in, but he refuses, until Silver Eagle tricks Super Demon and Tequila Joe into accidentally hitting each other, giving him a chance to escape. Once Escargot Man tags in, he's quickly overpowered too. But just as his opponent is about to slam him with a steel chair, the man in the mysterious room presses one of the angel buttons, causing Escargot Man's neck to stretch cartoonishly long, letting him knock out both opponents with a head swing. Nothing happens inside the room, which confuses him, so he presses the button again, over and over. This time, Escargot Man accidentally knocks out Silver Eagle, the referee, Antonio, and even the ring bell. Still confused, the man tries different buttons. One makes a metal singer breathe fire over a crowd in Los Angeles. Another causes a Russian magician to botch a disappearing trick. A third makes a guy in China bark back at his own dogs. He's ready to give up when he notices light above him. Unlike the previous room, this one has no ceiling. He can see adult angels flying far above. So he tries something completely new. Instead of pressing the angel buttons, he uses them as climbing holds. It works. Every time he grabs or steps on a button, something extraordinary happens on Earth. Flowers bloom, storms form, animals live and die. The higher he climbs, the more complex the effects become. Not just nature, but humanity itself. Small things like a toaster, and massive milestones like the first moon landing. By the time he reaches the top, his beard and hair have grown long, and he no longer needs the wall. He can float like the angels. Using all the training he gained from the earlier rooms, he takes on the role of a creator, deliberately choosing humanity's greatest victories instead of randomly triggering events. When he finishes, the walls dissolve into feathers, and a glowing portal opens. He enters it and arrives at the final room. This one has giant maps of the continents on the walls, and in the center is a massive angel button, the one he's about to press. This stage is called Future, and the story ends here. Don't forget to subscribe.